Hey folks, this is Buster Cherry. I just wanted to let you know about a new Bitcoin podcast that is launching. Are you tired of listening to podcasts done by suits? Do you want to hear content that affirms you doing nothing and makes you feel good about it? Do you want to be told that you can change the world by buying $100 hardware wallets using Bitcoin-only KYC exchanges running knots on a Start9 server, as well as buying whatever the recent gadget is? Do you want to hear macro gibberish that doesn't even make sense but confirms you are right? Well, Plebs Slop is the podcast for you. By plebs for plebs, this podcast will complain about people doing things while making you feel good, while you sit on your couch smoking weed and shit posting about David Bailey on Twitter. The co-hosts, Citizen Pleb and Toxic Plebanaut, will entertain you. This podcast can only be found on Fiat Podcasting 1.0 platforms because the hosts don't believe you should ever spend your Bitcoin. Find the hosts on Twitter, not Nostr, because the UX is too hard. Now sit back, light a cigarette, and enjoy the show.
The climate is abysmal. Plebs are grumpy. They're attacking podcasters, devs, and suit coiners, trying to cancel them for laughing at the plight of other plebs. Paper Bitcoin summer fizzled out before the first autumn leaves fell to the ground. Nostr has become a ghost protocol, yet in the midst of all the chaos, Bitcoin is still trading well over 100,000 tethers. Many are asking if all hope is lost. But all hope is not lost, not for pioneers. While the plebs are gnashing their teeth, the pioneers are blazing trails and building the foundation for the future. Hard times create strong men, and folks, we are in hard times. Once seen as the grumpiest Bitcoin podcaster, our guest today says he is feeling gleeful and bullish. Known for his optimistic price predictions, prolific Bitcoin podcasting, Nostr-only-ish ethos, and being a true trailblazing pioneer of the value for value frontier, today we are joined by Matt Odell. Matt Odell is a man who has read the mandibles, has survived multiple bear markets, never succumbed to the noise of the bull markets, except for that one time, and is a true top G. Although a skeptic of listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts per week, he lives it. Mr. Odell, amidst all this turmoil and the accelerating pace of the fourth turning, you've chosen to no longer be grumpy. What can the plebs learn from your example?
You gotta just enjoy the journey. Have fun. That was a great intro. I wasn't expecting a question. Thank you for having me.
It's good to be here. So we're taking over your studio. We're in Nashville. It's not a Bugle stream without me messing something up. So I think I mistitled the stream.
Are we live on Primal?
We should be, but I think I'm pointing it to the wrong account. So
which account?
Liberty Under Attack, I think.
What account is that?
It's a good account. It's a high signal account.
Under Attack.
Yeah, Decreaser does DJs, like a Doomsday DJ radio on Mondays for Liberty Under Attack. But while he's fixing that, I have a question for you, Matt. I think you could be described, you're a venture capitalist, a podcaster, a nostrich, a father, and a freak. How would you rank those five, descriptions of yourself? How would you rank those in order of importance to you?
Father, husband, Bitcoiner.
Okay. You
that would be my ranking. What?
You don't take pride, or at least as much pride as we do, in being a Bitcoin podcaster. You're one of the best.
The podcasts were like kind of an accident, and then I just kept doing them. I don't I don't know. The podcasts are kind of, to me, are more of a means to an end. I don't think of myself as a podcaster, but I definitely am one. So maybe that's not relevant.
Do you
Being
think
a
you should have more
podcaster-
pride? Should you be more proud to be a Bitcoin podcaster?
I mean, I think we definitely, take pride in our work in general. I mean, when I say we, me and Marty on Rabbit Hole Recap, I mean, I think it's to the point where it probably gets a little bit gratuitous how many times I say we've done it every week for 7 years. But that specifically is pretty fucking crazy. It's that borderline insane. We haven't taken a break. Had kids. Marty's dad died. Like all the COVID shit. Evacuated New York. Gave Marty 2 masks and said, good luck. That was when we thought everyone was going to die. March 2020. Still had RHR that week, though. I got married.
Could have turned your wedding into a podcast. I think that would have been really great.
It was actually really funny. I didn't want to dox my wedding day. So, but Marty was at my wedding, but we did it remote.
Like,
We
I
did
think
it like
that-
remote in person so that the freaks wouldn't know.
the reason we ask the question is because podcasters are becoming incredibly influential, and being a Bitcoin podcaster comes with a lot of responsibility. And I think, or do you agree that at the very least, Bitcoin podcasters should take themselves as seriously as Dennis Porter?
Well, that's a pretty low bar. I mean, jokes aside, like I think it's pretty lame that people just like change their recommendations for like 10K. There's so many cheap people in the Bitcoin space. Like your self custody recommendations shouldn't like change based on who your sponsor is. It's a pretty sacred responsibility to like recommend how someone saves their life savings for their family, and it shouldn't change based on who pays you the most. And if it is going to, like, they should at least pay you more. It's like really fucking cheap.
Yeah, we take that responsibility very seriously. That's why we only refer people to Office Depot for their paper wallets. I feel like this is safe. It's like, how can the Mossad infiltrate the paper supply?
No, freaks, do not. I mean, they're obviously joking, but definitely do not use like a shared printer to print a fucking paper wallet. That's a horrible idea.
No, obviously not. What you do is you take a Sharpie and you draw the QR code by hand.
In the Office Depot?
Cypherpunks use paper.
I think Jay Wellerman would advise that you go to the forest and you cut down 5 separate trees and you make your own paper out of the pulp, and then you write your seed, you make your paper wallet out of those 5, and then you put them in an envelope and you spread them out across the country.
I'm kind of annoyed that I can't see the live chat. Are we not live on Primal?
Check Zapstream. We should be.
Oh, I can check Zapstream.
Should we? I mean, I could stop the stream and restart it.
No, don't do that. We have Lindy.
I'm checking Primal right now. I'm monitoring the situation from a remote location.
We might only be live on Twitter. This might actually be a problem.
Yeah, I don't see it on, I don't know how to necessarily confirm on Primal.
I don't see it on Zapstream. Where is it on Twitter? Is it on the Bugle account?
Yeah, it's on the Bugle account. And I mislabeled the stream. I'm acting like an amateur today.
We're live with
fixed
Odell, and then another. Then there's an exclamation point just on the second line. Pretty funny.
being a podcaster is serious business.
It's hard. It's hard work.
It's a lot harder to like stream live on like 5 different platforms at once. It's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah, both of my shows are live shows. That definitely makes it much more difficult, I think.
Yeah, you're a true pioneer.
Thanks.
You have been one of the biggest, longest advocates of the value for value ecosystem.
Yeah.
We got the Citadel Dispatch flag behind us. How do you want to be like when kids are learning about history and Bitcoin history in their Citadel schools 50 years from now? How do you think they're going to write about you in the history books?
I know. Hopefully they don't at all. That would be the ideal situation.
Well,
That's not an option.
I think it's impossible because you've been out in front of a lot of things, and right now, Bitcoin Twitter is absolutely nothing but drama. But sometimes when there's some pretty spicy industry drama, when an Odell screenshot from Nostr starts going viral on X. And last spring, one of these situations where you called out Michael Saylor for his, he wanted to starve the core devs charitable donations, and you whipped out the plebs into quite a frenzy over that. But barely, just over a year later, the tides have shifted dramatically. The plebs are very much on Saylor's side. Saylor's trashing the idea of donating to well-intentioned core devs who just want to make Bitcoin better. How do you feel about that whole situation? Do you feel betrayed by the plebs, or would you encourage them to rethink their position in this node client battle? Have you taken a position in this node client battle?
Well, there's a lot of pieces there. First of all, so like last year, it came to my attention that Michael privately was telling people not to support the different organizations that are supporting open source developers in the Bitcoin space. Like I first just wanted to like talk to him about it privately, and I believe it or not, like I couldn't get in touch with him. I tried for a couple months. So like 4 months went by, 5 months went by. And then at that point, I really just got frustrated that it was just happening behind closed doors. Like I just kind of wanted an open discussion about it. So I sent out 2 Nostr posts, and at that point I was posting in all caps. So it probably came out much more aggressive than I intended, which is, I'll take responsibility for that because I posted it in all caps. But I was posting everything in all caps. And you can look back at the Nostr post, like I intentionally did not put my judgment there about whether or not I thought, I mean, you can like kind of, I've donated so much of my time to OpenSats, like you can kind of get my opinion from that, just from like the proof of work there. But I intentionally was just like, I just wanted people to talk about it and know about it. And a lot of the immediate reaction was specifically that I was lying about it. And as someone who has been truthful and honest and very transparent in the space for a long time, like the accusations of being a liar is like, that fucking sucks. Like that really frustrated me. So at this point now, when it's mostly people saying like Saylor was right and Odell was wrong, at least like they're admitting that I wasn't a liar. So I got that going for me. So that's a nice change of pace. Because Saylor can't both be right and me be a liar. Like logically, that's the case. I think, look, everyone should have their own opinion. I think, there's no such thing as an invalid opinion. It's not like an objective thing. It's something that people subjectively have to decide on what they think the best path forward is on open source development in general, not just in Bitcoin. But I would say that the idea that there's a small group of developers that are working on the Bitcoin protocol and Bitcoin core is a very real concern, and is part of the reason that OpenSats exists in the first place. Because I think the answer there is actually, I personally think the answer there is more developers and more diverse funding, and bringing more developers into the space that think differently and are, running their own well-maintained, well-reviewed implementations. Like, I think more choice is better in general. I think if you try and do like a defund the police movement on open source developers, what you actually introduce is you introduce a situation where they become more desperate and they'll take questionable funding, right? Like the concern that, maybe they're getting influenced by certain for-profit companies and stuff like that. Like, to me, that concern becomes, if you remove independent organizations like OpenSats that separates the donors from the actual grants, then the result you get is the situation we had. You get a situation where like a random for-profit company is like paying core devs like $60,000 directly and says like, merge the things that I want to see. So to me, I think that we were probably in a way worse position 4 years ago, 5 years ago, in terms of how these open source contributors were getting funding, because they were getting funding like directly from exchanges and stuff. And since then, we've seen HRF do their dev funding. We've seen OpenSats do the dev funding. So they have more diverse independent options available to them. And I think that's a pretty big win. But yeah, I'm just glad that people are talking about it publicly and that it's not happening behind closed doors.
Okay, I kind of have two questions on that subject. So one's a little bit unfair, but or maybe it's not. You since have talked to Saylor, right?
Yeah, we're actually on good terms.
Yeah. So what do you think his standpoint is?
And he wasn't offended that I posted those Nostr posts.
Is he just a big believer that paper Bitcoin is the best way to scale Bitcoin?
Look, I mean, obviously, he is a massive holder of Bitcoin, both personally and with his company, right? So, like, he does have a very strong incentive to see Bitcoin succeed. I mean, that's one of the cool parts about Bitcoin, right? Is that anyone who owns Bitcoin is aligned in wanting to see Bitcoin succeed. I think it was actually kind of interesting. I did an interview with him at the park, like right over there, a couple months after all of that. And it was like a breaking bread kind of thing. And I asked him specifically about, well, first of all, we only had like 40 minutes, and which means I get like 4 questions, like 3 questions, because he always has very long answers. But I asked him about Bitcoin used as money. And I was actually kind of surprised. He said that the main thing that he thinks is holding it back is actually like U.S. tax policy, which is interesting because I think a lot of people like assume that he just doesn't think people should or will spend Bitcoin. But if it's just a tax policy argument, then I think like people are more aligned there than people give them credit for. Because I mean the tax policy, specifically cap gains, is like it adds such a mental burden, it adds such mental friction that it does hold back. I think it holds back adoption in a lot of ways. But I think also at the same time, like it's just an order of operations thing. Like I think it's going to take time for people to first end up with all their savings in Bitcoin. And then once all your savings is in Bitcoin, it's actually easier to spend Bitcoin than spend dollars. Because if you're spending dollars, it means you have to actually sell the Bitcoin first to spend in dollars. So first Bitcoin is used primarily as savings. Then people start spending it later. And I think good money, it's weird because with Bitcoin, it's always been like the spend camp and then like the save camp, because like people on social media like to be in like tribes, but you really, for good money, you need both. Like, because if you can't spend your savings without permission, then you have no value there. It's basically not your money. So you need to be able to do both, and they both work hand in hand together.
So you think Saylor's being empathetic to people? He understands they can't afford their taxes, and that Bitcoin's a savings vehicle to be able to afford your taxes. And then if you spend your Bitcoin, then you have to pay a Jewish accountant to help you figure out how to be able to afford your taxes, and it's just expense after expense. That's his
No,
thing.
I don't think the problem with tax policy is not affording it, because you're only paying taxes on profit, right? Like the way cap gains works is if you're paying a percentage. If in America it's long-term cap gains, I think on the federal level it's like 20%, but it's a percentage of your purchasing power increase. So you're literally only paying cap gains if Bitcoin increases in purchasing power, which it does. So in that respect, like obviously you can afford it. The problem is just the mental burden of like actually like keeping track of it and reporting it and whatnot. I think that's
But you
the
can
concern.
afford it as long as you don't spend it before next April. And according to, this is just speculation. You're not the one tweeting from the 1031 Twitter account. But according to that account, Bitcoin is going much higher.
It's a very high signal account. I don't know if you've noticed. There's a lot of bullshit that's going on Twitter right now, but if you want the signal through the noise, the 1031 Twitter account is really there for the plebs.
What about, so Nostr, we can get into this a little bit too, because it seems like Nostr is kind of going through a little bit of a bear market. All the drama is on X. So everybody wants to go to where the drama is. You got plebs who are fleeing Nostr, going to X. And then you got Marty. What's it like going through this fork, turning all this drama? Marty isn't so much on Nostr, but I feel like he's probably spending 40 hours per week reading Truth Social. Like, how do you pull Marty back from Truth Social and put on a good podcast and do good work when everybody is just glued to the drama on the timeline, including the ostriches who are going to X? Like, how do you get them back? How do you get the drama? We thought Slander might come to Nostr when he was crashing out over paper Bitcoin summer. He didn't last. He thought it was an echo chamber. You got American Hodl. He's posting vlogs. How do you draw the plebs back to Nostr?
First of all, I think you guys are the main reason that you bullied Predator off of X, and then you brought Paper Bitcoin Summer over to Nostr and then bullied him back to X. So that was all on you guys.
I disagree with that. I disagree. No, Predator went to Nostr and he realized that it was really difficult to delete his posts. So then he left.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really difficult for influencers on Nostr is the no deletes. So you have to actually stand behind what you say. And then the other thing is no blocks. Like you can mute people, but you can't restrict your replies. And I think, a lot of influencers like the safe space of being able to restrict who can reply to them and stop the reply guys. So, but to me, that's a feature, not a bug. And I think over time, as Nostr adoption increases, the fact that people can't restrict replies will just mean that we'll have more honest discourse will happen. I think Nostr is still incredibly early. I think adoption is going pretty well. I think we're just starting to get to the point where like the apps are stable enough, right? Specifically Primal is getting to a really stable point, and I've been heavily involved in building that out. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with where we currently stand in terms of Nostr adoption. It is pretty disappointing that we don't have more drama. I think it's funny that a lot of people say there's too much Bitcoiners on Nostr. It's like, to me, it's like we don't have enough. Like, if you're gonna fight, if Bitcoiners are gonna fight, it'd be great if they fought on Nostr instead of X.
Right?
But I think it's just going to be a grind thing. Like, I think it's a time thing. I don't think Nostr is inevitable, but I think it is something that would be a massive value add to society if it does succeed. And so there's a bunch of us that are going to try and bootstrap it and try and make it happen. I think the live streaming with Zap specifically is a nice little edge that we have. And then you mentioned American Hodl. Like, I don't think he gets enough credit for being active and posting good shit over there.
He makes some
matters.
really great videos. The Bitcoin Treasury video, the 80s themed, I thought that was fantastic. And that video was a big influence and like an inspiration for me, or for not me, but me as well as the others who really were talking about Paper Bitcoin Summer and this big event that it was. And I want to clarify, we were not bullying Twitter or Predator. What we were doing was Predator was trying to avoid us. And we wanted him to know that he was invited to Paper Bitcoin Summer, and there was nowhere that he could hide where we wouldn't find him and let him know that we wanted him to join us. And I think you make a good point about Nostr. A lot of people don't like the ability to restrict the two-way communication. The people being able, like, a lot of people do want to avoid Shinobi coming into the replies to call them retarded. And my advice is, if you want people to stop calling you retarded, you have to stop being retarded. And I think that Nostr is a place where you learn that more quickly. You get that feedback. You can't hide from the truth. Nostr, you can't hide from the truth. And I think that the problem, and we get back to it, is you can't delete your tweets. Well, cancel culture just kind of flipped sides a week ago. And now there's a lot of, it used to be safe to post saying that Trump's meme coin was a shit coin. And I could be sued for it. And now people are trying to delete those tweets. And it's just it's a different mindset.
Would you consider Predator an influencer?
Oh, 100%. Would you not?
I don't know what he thinks he's a journalist, but
well, in Nazi Madness, he was in the influencer bracket. So
I
yes.
I think he plays an important role in the ecosystem, and there is a lot of groupthink, and there's he definitely provides a unique perspective, right? That most people aren't highlighting in a lot of ways. I will say that at one point he posted about how 1031 was evil for dumping fold stock on retail, and posted like a public document, because publicly traded companies have to release all sorts of documentation. And the public document he posted was about a credit deal that we set up for Fold, where for debt, so that they could buy Bitcoin and put it on the balance sheet. And we hadn't sold any Fold stock. I believe we still haven't. And so the 1031 intern let him know, what the facts of the situation were there. And he just completely ignored it. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm wrong. I think there's a tendency of people to not admit when they were wrong, or don't know something. And I think it's fine to be wrong, but you should own it. I've been wrong plenty of times, but it's important to own it.
It's a good point. Yeah, let's talk about. I wanted to circle back to OpenSats.
Yeah.
So what type of purity test do you issue when you're evaluating developers that you're funding?
So that's the other thing that's you know, and maybe we try and be as transparent as possible. I think we're probably one of the most transparent charities in the world, period. And so all of our grants are public. The who we provide grants to. We've provided over 200 grants throughout our existence. We don't say the amounts because it's a balancing act. Like, we don't want to, basically dox people's, how much Bitcoin they might have or might be getting. So this has been a balancing act. And I will say, like, we've probably provided nearly 250 grants. A lot of them are year-long grants. And I don't think a single grant recipient they're obviously completely allowed to tell people how much they make. And none of them have chosen to do that. So like, it's very obvious to me that grant recipients do not want amounts to be known. And so like, when people say like, oh, like OpenSat shouldn't be funding commie devs or this or that, it's like, okay, well, which ones are the commies and which ones are the ones we're funding? And no one ever gives me an answer on that. Like, they never tell me that. I will say that the overwhelming majority of stuff we fund is actually like not protocol stuff. We fund a few core developers. I think we fund one maintainer.
Which ones? Just out of curiosity.
Fanquake. I think we fund him. I think we partially fund him, and another organization partially funds him.
I was hoping you'd say Gloria.
No, we don't fund Gloria. But I like the whole design of OpenSats was based on us seeing, inefficient, corrupt charity organizations in the past. So we're 100% pass through by design. The board doesn't get paid anything. And we have a 9-person board that's 8 right now because Lisa stepped away earlier this year, so we need to replace her. But we have a 9-person board that doesn't get paid, and then every grant basically comes in. We get an app, and then it comes into this private GitHub repo, and then the board members review it underneath, and then we all vote underneath as well. And so like, if a grant gets a simple majority, gets 5 votes, then it gets approved. So no single board member can force through grant applications. No single board member can block those things. And as a result, I think it's a more merit-based process than a lot of other organizations. And what's cool there, it means like those votes aren't public, because I also don't think votes should be public, because if votes are public, then you could pressure board members and do like social media mobs and stuff to get them to vote one way or the other. So that's why those votes aren't public. But what it means is we have a full audit trail over every review process and every vote. So if we ever needed to release like an audit trail of why someone got a grant and how much they were getting and all that stuff, like we have all of those records, which I think is pretty cool. And then we have a review process. So usually like people have 1-year grants. We have long-term support grants that are 2 years. But then they're fixed in fiat on a yearly basis, and then they're paid out monthly in Bitcoin. So like the Bitcoin exchange rate's fluctuating, but we send out about $1 million worth of Bitcoin every month to about 200 grant recipients in 40 plus countries. And it's pretty fucking cool to see it all kind of come together. I mean, the BitAxe project, we were the original funders of the BitAxe project. I think that has been a massive success. I think we've seen a lot of success with Cashew. We're one of the largest funders of BTC Pay Server. And I think, if you want to supercharge, I think open source development is a key piece of, freedom in the digital age, because it's not controlled by any individual. It's not controlled by a company. And if you want to supercharge that, it makes sense to me that you support developers so that they can work full time on this stuff instead of, making it a hobby project on the side. Like Would these projects, still happen? Probably. Would they take longer? Yeah. Like, is life short? Like, would I rather have Freedom Tools operating in 2 years than 5 years or 10 years? Yeah, 100%. Like, that's better for myself. That's better for everyone. It's better for our children. So that's why OpenSats exists, to supercharge it, but also provide, this funding in a relatively merit-based, independent, transparent way as much as possible.
Do you think our core devs who are funded by OpenSats, are they allowed to have sex, or is it like a no ask, don't ask, don't tell situation? Do you have a policy at all in their contracts?
No, their sex life is completely independent from our review process. I mean, look, the cool part about open source stuff is you actually have like a relatively objective, like, proof of work track record for a lot of these developers. So you can see like if they're actually doing things, or if they're not. And they usually provide like a roadmap of what they tend to work on. And then when they give us the quarterly reports, they say, what they got done and where they currently stand. And, but we're relatively loose about it. Like if, like we see situations where like, someone, maybe they're outside of protocol work, right? Like they're like making a Bitcoin wallet or something, right? Like we have like Cove Wallet, which we've been funding, which is a self-custody mobile-based wallet. But like, let's say, for instance, like he says in his roadmap, he's going to release an iOS wallet, and then he like decides to pivot, and he's like, no, the App Store is like too difficult. Like, I'm just going to release on Android or web or something like that. And he says it in the report, like, that's completely fine. Like, we're not going to be like, yo, you said you were going to have an iOS wallet, and now you don't have an iOS wallet. So we're like relatively loose about it, but like the key is like don't just like take the money and do nothing. Just like fuck off and go on vacation or something. And we've actually only had, maybe there's like 9 grants that we've paused in the review process, and the overwhelming majority of them actually send back the Bitcoin, which is kind of crazy because like obviously it's Bitcoin, we can't claw it back. But they like feel bad when they send it back. They're like, oh, like I had a family issue or something, I'm just going to send it back.
You're not
maybe
Prime
that's
Trust.
Yeah.
They're not Prime Trust, no.
Maybe that's the compromise, though, to all this drama on Twitter, is to pay devs not to do anything. Maybe that's what we have to do. It's like pay all these devs to not tinker with Bitcoin. Maybe that's what some people want.
I mean, if the goal is to get developers that you don't want to work on Bitcoin to stop working on Bitcoin, then yeah, that actually probably would be pretty effective. It would be to just like pay
Sailor's
them to go on
got
vacation.
plenty of money. If Sailor doesn't want anybody to tinker with Bitcoin, he can just pay them to stay away. Everybody who knows how to code, just pay them to not tinker with Bitcoin. And the solution is it's like the people who don't like the spam. It's like, then just buy block space and price out the spammers. Buy off the developers to not code. I think maybe that's what we need to tell Sailor to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, jokes aside, like I think there's a lot of maintenance and like efficiency improvements that can be done on Bitcoin without protocol changes. I think actually like the knots, people mostly agree with this because like Luke is constantly shipping updates and making his own tweaks. But if you believe that there isn't, and you believe that we don't need any, more maintenance work or like efficiency gains and stuff like that, then like why are people arguing about running knots? Like just run V28 forever, V29 forever, not upgrade. You don't need the developers. Like you can just do that. But I think everyone is implicitly saying like, no, that's not the case, because that's why they want a separate, well-reviewed, maintained implementation and have more choice going forward. Because if that wasn't the case, then you could just always run the old one. I will say that on the consensus stuff, like actual soft forks and stuff, I think that ship has mostly sailed, like except for a few maybe very urgent things that have, like if something urgent and absolutely necessary had to happen, we might see a soft fork in the future, but at least in the near, I don't think like these things like covenants or anything that like CTV or whatever. I don't think any of that's going to happen. And I think policy changes like how nodes relay transactions and stuff that are not consensus based, should be up to the node operator on how they want to run that. But it's like not, it's not changing the protocol. So I think there's a little bit of a conflation between like bad changes to the protocol versus like how a node relays transactions and what a node keeps in its mempool. And I would just say like in general, I lean more on the sailor side in terms of first of all, like breaking changes to Bitcoin, which would be a hard fork, but also like on the soft fork side, like I think we should be very, very conservative if there are any soft forks going forward on to Bitcoin, and it should only be when it's absolutely necessary. Like there is a concern that you could have a change that's a bad change, and so Bitcoin is working right now. It is the base of a global financial system, and my entire my family relies on it. My businesses rely on it. Like my whole life relies on Bitcoin. Like I really don't want to fuck it up. I don't want developers to fuck it up, and so everyone needs to be as conservative as possible.
Do you think that so there's this growing crowd of people that say that there's too many Bitcoin podcasts. Do you think that the proponents of that believe that because there's too diverse of opinions, they want protocol changes like CTV, and that having too many podcasters with different opinions causes problems for that?
I mean, I think the problem on the Bitcoin podcast side is like we don't have enough podcasts. I think it's there's a lot of groupthink out there. Like there's not a lot of independent opinions. I think people are more or less scared to say how they actually feel, or actually haven't been able to do the work to actually have their own opinion. And usually they just repeat whatever their sponsors tell them to think. So I would like to actually see more. I think more education is good in general. I think more tools is better in general. I think more Bitcoin companies is better in general. I think more open source Bitcoin projects is better in general. And we just need more and more and more. And that's just a net win for everybody. And it's so how do you grow that pie? How do you make it more accessible?
I think I've got an easy answer to that. I think OpenShats should be looking at funding open source podcasting in general.
We were funding education for a bit, which we pulled back on. So like technically that could kind of fall into that field. I will say that the cool part about OpenSats funding developers is, like I said, open source developers specifically have like a verifiable track record that you can base your grant decisions on, right? Like you actually have commits and releases and projects that you can like actually like audit and look at and review. When you start funding things like education, or we've seen, some organizations fund like, so-called Bitcoin circular economies, like a Bitcoin beach or something like that. It becomes much more subjective on if work is being done, how much progress is being made. So it becomes much more difficult. I mean, I think other organizations, it makes sense to me that other organizations, could or maybe even should fund these things.
Well, I'm thinking about
I personally don't think like OpenSat should do all of the things, and I want to see more organizations bloom in general. Like we've helped support multiple independent organizations that specialize in different aspects of Bitcoin, and we like to see 1,000 flowers bloom. Like, I don't want OpenSats to be a single point of failure. The whole point of OpenSats in the first place was to distribute what we saw as centralized funding in the first place and add another option to the table. So like, if you don't like how OpenSats does things, like, one of the most productive things you can do is actually launch another organization, I think. But then last but not least, like, on the value for value side, like, I think direct funding is the best, because then you don't have a middleman in the first place. And I think this is another reason why specifically the work that's being done on Primal is so important, because if you make the interface for supporting both creators and open source devs much easier, much more like fun and almost gamified, with that nice social signal built in with Zaps, I think what you see more people actually do it. I think a lot of people want to support their favorite podcast or their favorite open source project, but it can be difficult, and so then the friction stops them from doing it. But like, if you, for instance, like if Craig Raw posts like a new Sparrow wallet update, like, zap that shit. So like, that is strictly better than him getting funding from an OpenSats. Like, I think users should be funding to developers directly if they appreciate their work, and same with podcasts and other education.
What do you think about like, there's this company called Lightning Bounties, where you can put a Lightning payment bounty on a project or something on GitHub. If somebody actually implements it, it gets merged into the project. They automatically get a payout from it. Like, what about using bounties in this way, where it's like, instead of me just funding you to go put whatever you want on Bitcoin, like a very specific change, a very specific fix, a very specific feature, and it goes on a bounty, and if it ultimately makes it into a release, then you can get paid for that instead of, the alternative.
I think bounties are interesting. I think it's also hard to do bounties effectively, though. So we've kind of shied away from it for the most part. I mean, the problem with bounties is, first of all, you have to make them very, very specific and objective. Because if they're vague in any kind of way, there's going to be arguments on who qualifies for the bounty and who should get paid out, and if someone should get paid out or not. The second problem you have is you have people do like the bare minimum amount of work to get a bounty. But I will say that we've had some successes. Like, we did a bounty program in partnership with HRF and Strike a couple of years ago. And that was actually what birthed Cashew, which I think has been a pretty successful project, and it's been pretty cool to watch. Like, Callie basically saw the bounty go up, and then like in 3 weeks released the first Cashew wallet, and claimed the bounty. So there's definitely success stories there. But as someone who has, had to debate about whether or not someone qualifies for a bounty or not, it can get really dicey. It's hard to do right.
I think, yeah, so you kind of flipped the tables on me. So it sounds like I care about open source podcasting, so I should endeavor on this. Like, I'd like to see the BitAxe of microphones.
That's pretty cool.
The Shure SM7B, the one that you're using.
Yeah.
It's like the flagship of Bitcoin podcasters. And I think there's a centralization risk. Podcasting is just like mining.
I think it's funny that I don't know. Like, the cool part about podcasting today, in my opinion, is that you can just like, use your laptop's mic, and you don't have to go buy fancy equipment. Like, just ship a podcast. Just like do it. You can iterate over time. Like, I think people overthink a lot of things. I'm a big believer in just like diving in headfirst into things and figuring it out as you go. And I think with podcasting as well, that's is like very valid thing. I also like hate when people like they sit on a show for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Like, just fucking release the thing. And that's why
Things
all
are
my shows are
moving too
live,
fast.
unedited.
Yeah.
Immediately ship it out.
That
Things
was
are
like a
moving too
third.
fast.
Yeah, taking 3 weeks to edit your podcast, that was like a third turn. Or yeah, it's not a fourth turning activity. That's for sure.
I agree.
So, one thing that I thought was really important, I want to talk to you about before we get into the founding base. How close are we to the Mandibles right now? And did Marty Ben ever read the book?
You never read the book, no. I think what people, so the Mandibles, to like the 10 people that don't know what it is a book about hyperinflation in the United States. I think one piece that people miss about it is that it's specifically based in New York. So like you only see the New York City perspective for the most part, without giving away too many spoilers. But it makes sense to me that as we see the institutions we rely on, even more trust get eroded from them, and the dollar continuing to just bleed value, as in, like inflation's just running away at this point. And it's not, the numbers they give you on inflation are just absolutely bullshit. Like it's really double digits, and you can just see it from like the cost of groceries and everyday things. Like people aren't idiots. So I think that will happen. And then I think the question is, what is the timing? And now I think in Mandibles specifically, like she thought Bitcoin was going to fail. And in her defense, I think she wrote the book almost 10 years ago, which it was probably more likely at that point that Bitcoin could fail or would fail. So I think in a world where we have Bitcoin and you have basically a seamless path to switching to better money, it should reduce the impact on how severe everything is, because people will have an option, right? People will have an out. But then it also depends on like where you are in the world and what is your local jurisdiction like and what is your local community like. And so there'll be places that will, it won't be as severe, and then there'll be other places that'll just be fucking horrible. And like specifically like the big cities on the coasts that are like horribly run and have like huge populations, like it's going to be worse there. And we're seeing that in New York right now with like Mamdani, like just a avowed socialist who like never had a job, likely winning the mayoral race there. These are like the early warning signs for this type of thing. And I think it's important, specifically if you have a family, like I think it's really important to think about these things and plan for the worst and hope for the best. Like maybe it's not as bad as it looks like. But I will say that, when you see smaller economies like Argentina and stuff go through hyperinflation, it's absolutely brutal. Now imagine that with a global reserve currency, and it should be significantly worse because, the whole world relies on the dollar. Like when Argentina peso is failing, like people flood to the dollar. When the dollar's failing, where do you flood to? Well, like you have gold and you have Bitcoin. So it's good that we have that alternative, that we have a good money, because if you don't have that, then it'd be significantly worse.
Thinking about like people fleeing to the dollar and places in the global south where it's kind of their lifeline. It makes me think of my most valuable Bitcoiner, who is Paulo from Tether. And in these kind of situations, like we don't want to see Tether's hyperinflate, but who is your most valuable Bitcoiner, just for 2025? And is it a podcaster?
I mean, I think we're very lucky to have Callie working on open source Bitcoin stuff. I think Cassie is fucking awesome. I think it's been impressive to watch it, become an open protocol that is much bigger than just him, with many different wallets. I think his work on BitChat has been really cool too. I think BitChat's pretty exciting.
The Zoomers in Nepal we're going full tally mode using BitChat to overthrow a very corrupt state. So any
Pretty cool.
progress in action right there.
So I think that's pretty fucking cool. I think Craig Raw just like is just a constant fucking legend. Like fucking rely on Sparrow. My businesses rely on Sparrow. OpenSats relies on Sparrow. My family relies on Sparrow. Like that fucking piece of software is unparalleled. So we're very lucky to have that. But yeah, I mean, I think
Who's
there's
new?
what?
I was just going to say, I think using Sparrow, like I want to launch the term raw dogging cold storage, raw dogging self storage, but as a tribute to Craig.
Why would it be a tribute to Craig?
Because his last name is Raw.
Oh, thank you for explaining that to me.
You're welcome.
It's a great last name.
It is a good last name.
Well, yeah. So one of the things we do on all our interviews is we read the fountain booze from the previous episode, the previous interview
Nice.
we did. Rob Hamilton told you to listen to our last one. It sounded like you didn't. We had Portland Huddle on.
I didn't listen to it. No.
What's your aversion to listening to 40 Hours of Bitcoin podcast?
I think 40 hours is a little bit aggressive. I think like if you listen to like a humble like 4 hours a week, it's pretty good.
Which ones?
I mean, that's a good question. I've been listening to Maller's show a decent amount now. His like weekly macro show.
You're not concerned with his broccoli haircut?
No, I think that's a feature, not a bug.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just being provocative. I don't really think about his haircut at all. I think it's pretty crazy how much success he's found with that show so quickly. And it does cover, you know, I like it because it's like kind of like weekly topical news, and specifically macro stuff, which I'm never been stronger on. It has never been my strong suit. I'll occasionally listen to Marty's shows. I'll occasionally listen to Danny's shows.
It's hard not to listen to Marty's shows when you see the open mouth thumbnail on YouTube.
I fucking hate and Marty's not the only one guilty of that, but the YouTube algorithm has just really, it's amazing what people will do for like a couple more listeners. I'm hoping that we can, provide a more incentive aligned path with Primal, on the video and the podcasting side. And, because I hate those. I hate the thumbnails. I hate the clickbait.
You got me with the last episode of RHR. I saw the open mouth thumbnails and clicked on it right away.
Yeah, well, to be clear, like I'm against our YouTube on RHR. I don't handle that.
So how far do you think Marty's going to take it?
We don't do those thumbnails on the podcast feed or on Noster. The RHR uses Marty's TFTC YouTube account. It always has. It doesn't have its own YouTube account. And then, like, if you look at the exact opposite, like Seal Dispatch, which I manage, like, there's no clickbait, there's no thumbnails, and like we're basically shadow banned on YouTube. No ads. Like YouTube prioritizes in the algo anything that shows YouTube ads. So it's like you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's a fucked up situation. So I don't really blame. I like particularly people that are like that's their main source of income. I think it was where a lot of the issues stem from. Because you just have to go to like the lowest common denominator slop bullshit. I don't know what the solution to that is. Maybe Zaps play a piece. Maybe algo choice and no algo stuff plays a piece. Maybe webs of trust play a piece, but it's like pretty dark where we are in like social landscape right now. And there's no easy solutions. Like it's not healthy. Whatever we're currently doing is not healthy, but I don't pretend to have the answers on like what the solution is.
I'm just curious how far it's going to go.
What do you mean?
Well, we're getting into this weird, people have their AI girlfriends now.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, that's pretty dark.
Yeah. Or like, is Marty gonna have to do like bikini anime picture thumbnails in the future to grab attention? Like, how far does this go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he will do that. But on the AI sex bot stuff, like I mean, you want to talk about dark. I think if Elon releases a robot or releases a way for you to have VR sex that feels as good as real sex or close, like half of society just like immediately checks out. Like I think that's a pretty dark path to think about, and it's probably going to happen because there's definitely demand for it. But
I wonder if Mechanic will think it's okay for core devs to have sex with VR bots.
What's your fascination with core devs having sex?
It's not ours. We're not. We're just we took a stance that it's okay for them to have sex.
That's really big of you.
It's important.
Oh.
Some of the purity tests they go too far.
That's definitely true.
Well, Rod, do you have anything before we go into the Fountain Boost?
No, let's do the burst.
Cool. So we interviewed Portland Hoddle. It was a great episode. He was the big villain on Twitter for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he did with the trying to intentionally use up the bandwidth of people's home nodes was pretty fucked up, to be honest.
Well, he didn't do it. He just talked about it.
Oh, well, if he did it, it was fucked up.
Yeah, I think he's writing a book if I did it, but he's just going to talk about how the attack worked, but he didn't actually do it. And nobody's been able to provide Comcast cable bills to, corroborate the accusations.
We've seen no logs.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it was a great interview. Rob Hamilton, first boost, 21,000 sats, like 20 laughing emojis. What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, is Rob Hamilton's giggling problematic? Should he stop laughing?
And look, Rob can do what he wants to do. Rob's a friend. I definitely don't agree with him on everything.
Do you agree with him on Miniscript?
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's cool what they were able to build with Anchor Watch using it. I think it's like it doesn't make sense to me that like people like care what a company's node preferences are for like a non-consensus change. I think that's a little bit weird, but people like cancel culture stuff, so maybe that's just more endemic of our current society. On the Giggle Gate specifically, I think it was like kind of a bad look to laugh at node operators potentially getting node operators getting almost like DDoSed, I guess. But I also think like people make big deals about things that don't really matter.
Yeah. So the next boost is from Fundamentals, and he's I'll get into him in a second, but he boosted 10,000 sats. And his comment was, the giggler is born. So if you're kind of piecing together the conversation we're having right now about Rob and giggling and nodes being attacked. So a bunch of rowdy students from Bitcoin University, Matthew Cratter's institution, got really upset at Rob for laughing at the plight of Comcast nodes run by plebs. So they were trying to cancel him. And there's an ad in the episode at the very beginning that people are referencing here in these boosts. But we covered that already. I wanted to cover real quickly on fundamentals. He's the author of Bitcoin is for Institutions, and he was in Nashville. We were all in Nashville last summer at the Rabbit Hole Recap, like Bitcoin conference event, at the bar.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember like the Rose? Do you remember that comedian that was there? Do you remember who that was?
David Lucas.
David Lucas. And fundamentals, he loves
way more
you.
aggressive than I expected. Anyway, continue.
Fundamentals loves podcasts, and you just mentioned David being aggressive, but Fundamentals kind of has Odell derangement syndrome since that night because he thought that you were very grumpy and that you were not handling the roast very well. I'm curious to hear your thoughts firsthand about what you were thinking about on stage, because were you like, I'm a podcaster, you can't be talking about me this way?
No, I think you know, one of the coolest parts of the shows is, you know, interacting with people all around the world. Like, I think the freaks are fucking awesome. Like, we have a really cool ride or die community of listeners, and like that's the single most positive part of the shows, and it's what keeps me going. And the in-person shows are extra special because, I mean, in this case, it was our largest in-person show that we'd ever done independently. So like not at a conference. I think it was like 600 people. It's like packed out room at this music venue in Nashville. And we told people that it was family friendly and that they can bring their family. And he just gets up on stage and the first thing he says is there's a bunch of kids in like the front row. And he's like, you all should have been aborted. And I was like, it just set me off in the wrong direction. So I don't think I was, I think grumpy is probably the wrong word for it. I think it was more like, and anger is not the right word either, but it was like, I was pretty pissed off at him. No, that was fucked up.
That makes more sense, actually.
Yeah.
David, that's David Lucas's shtick.
I know. I had no idea who he was though. Like the PubKey guys handled that part. I mean, mostly I think the PubKey guys did a pretty good job with that event planning. And the best part was I didn't have to do any of the planning. So, on that note, like they do deserve credit for that. Because I hate planning events. Like that shit is a slog. As one of the co-founders of Bitcoin Park, and we have an event going on right now.
It was a great show. I had a good time.
It was a lot of fun, right?
I hope you guys do more of those. I think the live events are really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So, yeah, it's a lot of people, they hug it out when they're in person, you know. They argue on Twitter, they issue each other purity tests. When they're drinking beer together, they hug it out, feel better.
Yeah, no, I think social media really divides people in general. And that's another unsolved problem. Like, I don't know how we mitigate that. Make it a healthier experience for people.
I mean, this is what we try to constantly do with Predator. We just try to wish him a good day. Hope he has a good day.
It's really big of you guys.
I want to give him a hug. I hope he shows up at the RHR event. I'll give him a big hug. We'll smoke a cigarette together.
I mean, he might have been there at the last one.
I heard he doesn't go to these events because he's somebody told him that crypto mags will tickle him, and he doesn't like to be tickled without consent.
How would you not want to be tickled by crypto mags? All right. Next boost.
Wait, what did Fundamentals say? Did you even say what Fundamentals said?
You said the Giggler is born.
Oh, the Giggler's born.
Oh, yeah.
The Giggler was a big hit.
I mean, you mentioned Odell derangement syndrome. Like, that's a real fucking thing. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of people hate me now. Kind of unexpected.
Yeah, I think the people that the haters, what you need to realize is that Bitcoin podcasters are important. Where would Bitcoin be without Bitcoin podcasters? Odell here is like one of the longest running Bitcoin podcasters in the world. He's going to be in the history books. People in the future, they're going to think of, these important figures in history. Alexander the Great, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Matt Odell.
I fucking hate you. But thank you. That was kind. I will say, I think a lot of it stems from what people don't realize is OpenSats has probably rejected like nearly 2,000 applications. So I think behind most Odell haters is a rejected OpenSats application, and they never say that's what it was. They always make up some other reason for it.
Well, how many?
It's funny because a lot of them I've actually probably voted yes for, but I'm the face, so they blame it on me.
Well, how many applications has the Clinton Foundation or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation approved?
I don't know. I don't think they're very transparent. I don't know if we have that information.
It's interesting where some people's priorities are.
What do you mean?
Well, there's these purity tests that are thrown at Bitcoin podcasters, and then there's these people on the Epstein client list, and it's like, where are you drawing all your energy?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
And why are you sitting on the peanut gallery like, hurling insults at Bitcoin podcasters when you don't even have a podcast? Like, what ground do you have to stand on? Like, sure, yeah, you can pass all the purity tests when you're not even doing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true.
You can't criticize. You can't criticize. You can criticize anybody you want with the way that they're spending your Bitcoin if you never spent a sat.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's weird where people, it's people can focus their time wherever they want to focus their time, but try and be productive.
Yeah. Shadrach, 10,093 sats says, "Thank you, gentlemen. Long live the giggler. Hashtag 40 HPW." Yeah,
Nice.
the giggler was a hit for sure. I really appreciate these Fallon boosts. We got a very committed group of people. We don't
that's
have a
pretty
name.
good.
We don't have a name for them yet. We don't call them freaks. I think that's really disrespectful.
We do have a name for them. We call them pioneers. That's kind of our big thing. We try to get people to stop identifying as, retarded plebs and realize that they're pioneers, that the UX, the user experience on the frontier of separating money from state and building a new global monetary standard, the user experience is not going to be good. It's not going to be easy. We're pioneers and we need to start acting like it and stop acting like plebs.
I like pioneers. Pioneers is a good one.
Go Pios. It's did you hear there's a new rival university out there to rival Bitcoin University. It's called the University of Bitcoin. It's actually a real credentialed university, and their mascot is the Pioneers.
That's great. The more education, the better.
I mean, I don't know why you would go to an unaccredited university.
No way. The next boost is from another pioneer, Late Stage Hodl, 2,500 sats. He says, Notre Dame's helmets are painted in gold. As gold demonetizes, then Bitcoin fixes this, and then Notre Dame will have to forego the paint to stack sats. That's a good point. Demonetization, the dollar falling apart, Bitcoin taking over, it's going to have an impact on college sports. They're not going to be able to pay, student athletes millions of dollars to play sports ball every Saturday. They're going to have to fund Bitcoin podcasters and the infrastructure for education a little bit more deliberately.
Notre Dame's such a loser school. What's your opinion on sports ball? You got a favorite sports ball team? You like sports ball?
I used to be a big Giants fan. COVID kind of broke it all for me. I think also at the same time, we started a family and I became a dad and I have a lot of work stuff as well. So it's hard for me to devote much time to it. I kind of got like burnt out from it. But like the whole way, like all the leagues like fucked around with their players, and were very like propaganda driven on the like vaccines side and stuff, like kind of really broke it for me. I do I watch F1 a decent amount.
Wouldn't racing be better if they allowed cigarette companies to sponsor cars?
Yeah, they used to. They don't anymore, I don't think, right? I mean, I think it's kind of funny. I think Bitcoin podcasters should have to wear like the F1 uniforms with like all the different sponsors on them.
Kind of like the Swan Forcers back in the day.
Yeah, you should have to wear the sponsors all over your clothing. Be very obvious. I mean, I like F1 because like it's, first of all, I think it's just a cool sport. But second of all, just like the fact that like it's one of the few ones where you can actually like still die in them, which I think it keeps it.
Well, for a while there, a lot of players on the football field and other sports were dying because they made them get vaccinated.
Yeah.
You can die podcasting these days. Pretty crazy.
That's true too.
I like going to live sports. I've been watching way less TV in general. So I like live sports are fun. Live music is fun. Like it's just cool being at events.
You should be able to do a lot more live podcasts.
Yeah.
I have a live podcast studio.
It's a great idea. Well, let's blast through these boosts. Team Satoshi double boosted us, said thank you for your time. Everything Satoshi 500 sat says, the people complaining about Portland HODL are people who missed out on Bitcoin Twitter spaces during the bear market, the 69 to 15K era. Some of the stuff mentioned in those spaces can't be discussed today, courtesy of the oversensitive, less Bitcoin educated suit coiners and noobs. I support Knots, Datum, and Ocean, but Matthew Cratter was wrong about this one. Love Cratter, though. Well, it's nice that you love Matthew.
No, I'll do real quick before we blast through the rest of these. We forgot to ask you, how do you feel about suit coiners? Are you a fan of the suit coiners? Some people think you may have coined the term suit coiner, although Predator takes credit. What are your thoughts there?
I think I might have been the first person to say it, but also I don't really give a shit. What? Joe's looking at me. Did we never admit you were in the room? I think I was the first person to say suit coiners. I have my Twitter archive, so I can pull up the date. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I like just putting words in front of coiners. So like pre-coiners, no coiners. I mean, obviously I didn't come up with the term no coiners. Bitcoin deniers. But the suit coiners, look, I think they're aligned, obviously, because of Bitcoin alignment. It's like what we talked about earlier. I do think, everyone's welcome to do whatever they want. But this whole like leveraged Bitcoin equity, like MSTR strategy play is like not interesting to me. I think Saylor has absolutely crushed the game on that front. It's like very much MSTR and then everyone else. But at this point, it's like clearly like a bottom tier grift on like a bunch of these plays. And it's like everybody is like just selling out and like launching some random fucking Bitcoin penny stock that doesn't actually like have an operating business. Like doesn't actually like, they implicitly try and get you to buy the stock instead of Bitcoin. So it's like, it's pretty lame. It's kind of boring. I don't think it's bad for Bitcoin. I think it probably broke any remainder of moral high ground that like the online Bitcoin maximalism community had. Like how can I think actions speak louder than words, and it's like I mean I'd rather not name names, but like I don't know. Like a lot of these are just fucking garbage, and people are just in it to like hopefully get rich quick, at the expense of whatever their audience is. Because I mean, you look at like the boards and stuff, and it's just like, oh, who has the most Twitter followers? We'll just draft you in.
I appreciate you not naming names. We don't
Do you?
allow anti-Swanitism on the podcast. I don't know. I
No,
mean,
sorry.
I think like having a formalized influencer draft is a great idea.
I mean, that's basically what it kind of. You guys should do that. Like, that's how what it feels like. It feels like all these people are like free agents and they're getting drafted by whichever penny stock gives them the best deal. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, I'm also a free market guy, so people have the right to get wrecked, and they should, take personal responsibility for their actions.
Yep.
And obviously, more demand for Bitcoin helps all Bitcoiners because we see our purchasing power increase. And I don't know, like some people like would prefer to be poor. Like I'd rather my purchasing power, my money increase. It makes everything easier in life if your savings can buy more shit over time.
Well, let me blast through the rest of these. God's Death, 237 cents says, thank you, gentlemen. Pies, 121 cents. You know pies, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you don't know that Nostr user pies?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Says, yo, 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 salute, strong arm, mushroom emoji, hashtag 40HPW. Dave, 100 cents, says, we ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now because it's bad boy for life. CPOBV, average Gary, 100 cents, says, there's a Bitcoin underground on Nostr that Portland Hodl is missing out on. Yeah, we gave Portland a hard time for not being on Nostr.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that more Bitcoiners don't use it, but network effects are a bitch, and a lot of people are obsessed with engagement. So until we get more users, those people will not use Nostr. It doesn't really even matter what the UX is like.
Yeah. Average Gary, 100 cents, says like a heart hand symbol emoji. Bitcoin Golf Pro, 100 cents, says greatness. Thank you. BTC on board, 100 cents. Good friend, BTC on board. Glad you listened. 3 laughing emojis. And that's it, folks, for the fan base. Mr. Odell, you're a true pioneer.
Thank you, sir.
I feel like I'm talking to an elder statesman right now.
Any advice for people who it's going to be hard not to be grumpy? I have a feeling the next few years. What is your advice for people to break past the grumps, be happy and optimistic about the future?
Why do you think it's going to be hard not to be grumpy?
Well, you're not on X, but if you have been paying attention and monitoring the situation, the world is not going in a great direction right now.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with that, but I think on the Bitcoin side, we're probably in the best Bitcoin timeline. It's hard to imagine Bitcoin being in a better place right now. So I think people should find joy in that and not take it for granted. It's really weird. Like, this is the first real bull market where like the Bitcoin prices, as the Bitcoin price is increasing, like people are getting more mad. Right? Like we used to be happy together. And I think part of it is also because like of the Bitcoin penny stocks, because like sometimes, the penny stock pumps and Bitcoin doesn't pump. So the penny stock people are happy. And then sometimes Bitcoin pumps, but the penny stock doesn't pump. So then the penny stock people are upset. So like we're not like as all in it together in terms of like our bags at the same time. It's like very much like a shitcoin dynamic in that regard, right? Like Solana dumps when Bitcoin pumps, So it's like an interesting phenomenon how much rage there's been, but I think it's probably going to be even more rageful. Like it's going to be, so just like enjoy the pump, you know, enjoy Bitcoin being adopted and increasing in use and purchasing power is just fucking awesome to see. And then the second piece is like I find a lot of hope in the open source movement. I think ultimately like giving people agency over their lives and independence and freedom to choose how they live their digital lives is something that will result in better human flourishing and just better, better results for individuals themselves. So that's where I focus most of my time. To me, there's, real optimism there, and it's actionable, and it's something that I can actually change. And then last but not least, like, I have a growing young family, and that's fucking awesome. It's an incredibly exhausting, rewarding, beautiful experience. And so like focus on the things that you can change, focus on what matters, and enjoy the little things. Don't get caught up in all the bullshit out there, because there's so much fucking bullshit. People are just get angry about things that just don't matter.
Yeah. My final thoughts on that is, if you thought hyper Bitcoinization was going to be easy, you did not. You're not listening to 40 hours of Bitcoin podcasts per week.
Thank you, Mr. Odell, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen. Anytime. I enjoyed it, and we're very lucky in the Bitcoin community to have the boys at the Bugle providing us credentialed journalism. So thank you.
Marty Ben says this time is different. Bitcoin is one and it is magnificent. Governments are buying, so why aren't you? Don't you wanna be rich and cool? Odell is confused and doesn't think Lynn is hot. He's a gay bear who needs to be taught. Staying humble was cool during the bear market, but this is the bull, it's going up like a rocket. The future is bullish because Bitcoin has won. It's been a tough bear market. Get ready for some fun.